Back to the old Honda Recon 250 ES. Had carburetor problems this past winter, and so I did a rebuild actually on my original Honda Carb. Threw it on here, and been running great. So what I'm going to do today is take the carburetor that I'd taken off and do a quick rebuild on it. But just to show you the result of the rebuild I did on the original, turn the fuel on, give it a little bit of choke, see what we get here. So it's amazing what a little cleaning to a carburetor can do. Before, this carburetor that was in here just wouldn't idle, and it was probably the pilot jet was clogged up. But I've got something I'm going to show you in just a minute that I've used to clean this. I'll do it on the other carburetor. For now, let's go on. Here's the original parts carburetor that I had put on that it got this past year to where it would not idle at all. This is the carb that I took off. It's a little dirty in there. Other than that, it's pretty clean all around. I only had it on there about a year. And I'll tell you, one of the things I found when I did this last carburetor change is, let's go over here and I'll show you real quick, is in the air box right here. This thing was filthy, and when I took the air cleaner off, I noticed that there was a gap up underneath allowing dirt to get in there. So that could have been the problem. I'm not saying it was. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put an inline fuel filter in here so that if there's anything in the tank, there should not be, but you never know. If there is, it'll capture that too, because it seems to be a reoccurring problem. But what I did with this box is I took it completely out. I scrubbed it, just cleaned it real good, got everything out of it. I made sure when I put this air filter back on that it was completely sealed all the way around this ring here. I cleaned out the snorkel too. It had dust and dirt in it. I cleaned it out real good. So now I've got a good clean intake into the carburetor. And like I said, I'm going to add a inline fuel filter to see if I can prevent any trash from getting in the bowl. With this carburetor here that had come off, I'm going to take it completely apart. And what I bought, and you can get these off of Amazon, or you can pick them up at Harbor Freight, is this ultrasonic cleaner. And I use something real light. This is a mix of stuff. It's pine sol, a little bit of mineral spirits, and it probably has some carburetor cleaner in there as well. This is a rebuild kit, but I found with that one that's on the four-wheeler right now, I didn't use a rebuild kit on it. I took everything apart, put it in here, let it run for several minutes, and then I took everything out and I made sure everything was clean. I checked the jets and the pilot jet and all that, make sure everything was clean, put it all back together, put it on the four-wheeler, fired it up, it ran great, and it's still running great right now, but I haven't had it out very much since then. We'll just have to see how it goes. But for today, I'm just going to show you the same process with this. I'll take this apart, put everything in there. I'll make sure it's all clean. If there is a part that I need to replace, I've got this. I got these off of eBay. They're pretty cheap. But if I need to replace the pilot jet or whatever, I've got it there. Looks pretty nasty in there to me. I'm seeing a good bit of gunk buildup, varnish. And I do use stable in my fuel, so I'm a little surprised at that. Make sure you keep that. It only goes on one way, but that little gap right there faces back this way towards the hinge for the float. You'll want to take this out. This is your pilot jet here. That's your main jet. This is a two-piece. You'll put a wrench on that to take that part out, and you'll want to look through those to make sure you can see through them. You can also move this pin right here out to take that out and take that, I guess you would call it the float valve, the float needle out. If trash gets up under that, it'll hold it open and fuel will just keep coming through, and it'll actually come through the carburetor, and you'll see there's no mistaking when you get trash under that. So let's look at that pilot jet first. I may have called that a pilot valve earlier, but I think it's actually the jet. So I'm trying to see if I can see through it. Right now I don't see anything through there. So this is my problem. Whenever you have a carb that just will not idle, maybe you can get it started, but it won't idle. That's usually the culprit right there. Let's see what we can do with this. I may have to get a little wrench out. Yeah. See, I'll have to. Now this I can see through fine, but I am going to separate the jet from this stem right here. There's some little bitty holes in here on both sides. It's all the way down on this side, and there's just 4 on this side. But anyway, that's your main jet. That's for running. That's for when you give it throttle and gas and all that good stuff. Now this pin, I think it only comes out in one direction. And this particular one, it's got, it's not threads, but it's some little raised part on that side. Well, of these two right here, one is taller than the other, so put it in on the taller side to put it back, with that part ending up on the taller side, like that right there. And when you take this out, your little needle valve right there, that's what closes off the everything. And let's see, look at the trash that's in this carburetor. There's just all kinds of crap in here that's just waiting to clog things up, and that's why the thing wouldn't run. So it's not the carb. There's nothing wrong with the carb. It's just dirty from trash getting in there, either through the fuel or maybe even the air system. I'm not sure. But I'm gonna finish taking things apart here. I'm gonna take your idle adjustment screw out. Well, my camera cut off on me, and in reviewing the footage I found that anyway, that's not the way it was running. What I did is I adjusted the throttle cable up there on the handlebar, and I ran it out to where the throttle was constantly like it was being pressed in order just to get it to run. So that's why I had to take this carb off. And again, that goes back to the pilot jet, which is this one right here that you can't see through. So they do provide another one in this kit right here that I can put in there. But I need to clean this, and I didn't realize that the camera had cut off, and you didn't get to see me messing with all these hoses and taking this apart, and my hat kept getting in the way, or my head. But anyway, I've taken everything off, and that's pretty much it that I'm going to mess with. I'm not gonna take that flap off, but I'm going to take all this, all these goodies, all the trash that's in here, it's all going to go in this ultrasonic cleaner that I got for, I think it was, heck, I want to say it was about 50 bucks. We'll just put it that way. And like I said earlier, you can get that off of Amazon. You can get it at Harbor Freight. They sell them everywhere. I even saw one the other day at Academy Sports in their reloading section. So you can get these pretty cheap if you have a need for it. If you need to clean stuff. I bought it mainly for gun parts, but it works great on carburetors as well. Alright, I've got my parts in the ultrasonic cleaner. I do have several that I've not put in there. I have those over here just laying on the lid of the cleaner, and that would be like your float and these plastic parts, and just some little bitty parts, screws mainly, things that really don't need to be cleaned real well. I could wipe them down, but especially something like that goes in and makes a seal, I'll make sure that's good and clean. But for the most part, what I'm attacking here is the bowl and the inside of the carb over here with all that trash right there. I want to work on getting that out. I also did put the jet and the pilot jet in there to see if I can get those clean. But other than that, that's it. I got to put the fluid in there before I turn it on, and we'll go from there. All right, I got the parts in. I've got some fluid in there. That's, like I said, that's a mix of stuff. The majority of it being Pine Sol, but I do have some mineral spirits in there, and not a lot, and a little bit of carburetor cleaner. Just enough stuff to kind of break up the crud that's in there. I've got it filled about as high as I want to get it, and got it on, and it's not very hot right now, which is good. You don't want to ever turn your heat on with these things without the fluid being in there, because you'll scorch it, melt your basket if it's plastic. The nicer ones have metal baskets, and this is a pretty cheap one. Alright, well, I had to come down here about every 8 minutes, and I did that 4 times. And sometimes the time I'd set it back to 8 minutes, and I'd piddle around a little bit and then reset it again. So there's actually about 35 minutes total that I've had this in here. And I'd take the time, because this won't completely submerge, tank's not big enough, I'd rotate it. But with that, that's the inside now, and I'll show you the bowl, which actually, that's the inside of the bowl now. Whole lot cleaner, bigger difference. So I'll get that stuff out, and we'll look at it again. All right, I have everything out of the Sonic cleaner, and everything is looking good. This is everything that was in there. The pilot, I still cannot see through it. I could probably take a little piece of wire and run through there, but in doing that, you could score the inside, and that would cause things not to run that well. Why do that when this little parts kit, about 12 bucks I think, has one in here that I can put in brand new? So I'll begin putting this together. Here's the other parts that I did not put in the cleaner. I'll make sure I wipe them down, but I'll get started. One thing that did not show up on the other video was this carburetor here. This one that I'd bought off of eBay. It's not a bad carburetor. It's actually a pretty nice looking one. I had it on there for a while and it ran fine, but after it sat for a while it started leaking gas, and it wasn't leaking from a seal. It was the float valve was stuck open and gas was just pouring through it. So I've already rebuilt this one. I just keep it in a box as a spare. And also, when I'm putting the other one back together, I have a handy reference right here. I can see how all the hoses run. Make sure that's in focus. I can see how all the hoses run. Make sure the spring for the throttle and choke, the choke, are on there correctly. So got a handy reference there for not very much. I think when I bought this it was 15 bucks, but now I went back and looked and they're up to 20 or 25 now, but that's not bad considering the rebuild kit is just about as much. You can get a whole carburetor for that. But I don't mind rebuilding carbs, and I'm about to start working on this. I need to set the camera up where you can see and make sure that I don't get my head in the way. So one of the things I like to do before I put one back together is try and squirt this carb cleaner through it completely, just to make sure everything is opened up. I still need to take that that jet off of this thing and look at it real good. I actually have a new jet in here that I could use. Let me see if I can find a wrench for that. First guess, 7mm. So that right there. Oh. And then that. That's good and clean. I can see through it. It looks good. This jet is the same way. It's good and clean as well. If I had my glasses on, there should be a number. I think it's right there. I can't see it without my glasses, but anyway. That's what you want to do when you're replacing one, is verify that you do have the right jet going back in it. Alright, there's not a whole lot to this thing. Let me go putting it back together. So this doesn't seat all the way down, and there is that little piece. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little piece of copper in there that goes up. But anyway, I can tell that originally this did not seat all the way down. So I just want to snug it in like that. And now I need to get out my new pilot jet out of here. Is this one that you can see through, whereas this old one you can't see through it too well. Alright, not too much to these things. I'll just keep working on it, getting things out of here that I want to replace. That will sit there. The original seal on here had some looked like RTV up underneath it, and I cleaned that with a wire brush to get that off. I've never seen the RTV on these little carburetors. Matter of fact, here it is right here. You can see some of that crud that was on there. That's a little bit different seal. This one is flat, and it may just be that way. It's flat on one side, I should put it that way, and it may be that way from where the factory put it together. This one's more rounded all the way around. That's what I'm used to. When I put the screws in the bowl, close it up to the carb, I've never had an issue with them leaking. They tend to work just fine without any sealant on there. So what I'm trying to do here is make sure that I get the correct screws for this, which they're the short ones, and I want to make sure The longest ones I have are the bowl screws, these three. These two go right here. They're the medium size, and the short ones go right here. And one thing I'm doing here, I'm putting that together, but I did not verify if this is facing the correct direction. So what do? I get out the old carb, and what do you know? I did it right. So your hoses come off on one way, this top hose goes the other direction. So I actually put it together right. Handy to have that little cheap carb sitting there just for reference. All right, that's together. I'm just kind of putting this stuff together haphazardly. I'll look at this. Nothing appears to be wrong with this. It actually rides right in here, and that sits, turn it around, right down in this hole right here, just like so. Now this piece again, it's got this, I can't even think of what you would call that, serrations. We'll just call it serrations on one side. And if I recall correctly, that went in on the longer post right here. So I have no idea where the camera cut off. It only records for 10 minutes. It's just my Android phone. I probably could change that setting. That's probably some saved battery crap. But anyway, when I put this together originally, I forgot to put this spring in. So and again, this piece right here goes away from the other two on the bottom. So get your short screws. You gotta keep pressure on the top while you get that started. Flip it around, applying pressure, making sure everything's still lined up. Now, getting those tightened down. That's ready to put back on. All of this right here goes together. So I think I have everything in here ready to roll. This is good. I don't want to flip this over, the bowl over, because that seal right there is just, oh, you know what? I guess you saw that. I got to be mindful of this because it's just, oops, just sitting on there. And what I'll need to do is kind of like this right here, about like so. All right, now the longest screws go here. Now when comparing this, I'm looking at these two together. This is for looking at how this piece right here will go on this carb. So it will go on just like so. And that goes on with these medium length screws. All right. Now, when you go to put this in, right here, you've got this needle. You've got this right here. It's kind of like a little ramp. That's what your throttle adjustment screws. As you screw it in, this pulls it out, allowing more gas to go in. So in looking at this, our idle adjustment screws on this side, that will touch right there. So that's the way you realize or note that that goes in, like so. Looking at this, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but the spring kind of goes down in a conical shape and it fits real good in there. And then this can ride in here just like so. And then compressing this is not the funnest thing in the world, but once you get it in, you can screw it on like so. And that's where your throttle cable hooked to. All right, need to put, I can put this old one back on, or I can get a new one out of there. The original one, there's nothing wrong with it. It looks good. I'm just going to set it in there. It's not like I'm putting this carburetor on, and when I get ready to, I can change that out if I want to. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Now it's time for this mess right here. I'm gonna start the video over so it doesn't stop. All right, for putting on your throttle linkage, you got this spring right here. It's gonna ride in here just like this. Long leg down against the bowl, short leg up top. That short leg rides in this plastic piece. All right, so what it needs to sit in here like that, right there. And when you put it on, you're going to have to pull this long leg down to get it under that post, and like so. But when I did that, I didn't have this up. So let's see, there we go. There we go. That's what you want right there. It's operating that. It's got the pressure on it. So when I put it on the first time, it did not have that needed pressure. There, that's the way it's supposed to operate. Make sure I get that snug. Yeah, don't want to strip out my screw. All right, let's see. Drain hose on the bowl. Push it on. There's that. Now, longest hose out of these three goes up here on that. and connects in right here. I could be telling you a story. Looks like this hose goes up there and connects on there. You got a little guard on here to help with any rubbing you may have. That'll go on here. Of course, I don't have those clamps out of the way. If I didn't state it before, those clamps leave a lot to be desired. Well, the camera cut off again, so anyway, I finished putting the hoses on like so. It's together. Oh, I noticed that I don't have that one clamp right there all the way down, so I'll have to fix that. But other than that, it's back together. It's got a new pilot valve in there. If I didn't mention it, that pilot valve is pretty much for idle. It's what puts the fuel in there when it's sitting at idle. So when it gets clogged up, it just won't run. Now you can give it gas and it can run off the main jet, but it won't run off the it won't idle, put it that way. Well, that's it. Took it apart, cleaned it, put it back together, replaced parts needed replacing, and it's ready to put on a machine.